Edward Laos.
Welcome to Travel Talk, brought to you by The Hotel Guide, the global voice of luxury and boutique hospitality. Featuring Edward Laos.
Good morning, everybody. Edward Laos here, publisher of The Hotel Guide and your host of Travel Talk. Really excited about today's episode. I have Tatiana Montenegro, who's a vice president of Effy Group. And we've chatted a little bit offline and we're kind of catching up on some things. So she's got a great story and I'm excited about having her on. How are you doing today, Tatiana?
I'm very well. Thank you, Edward. It's great to see you.
I'm happy to have you on the show and kind of talk a little bit about what's going on in your world. But as always, my listeners are kind of want to know who we're talking to. So why don't you let us know a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are, and then we'll talk a little about the Effy Group and some other things.
Of course, with pleasure. So as a daughter of immigrant restaurateurs, I grew up in the restaurant business. And after college, I was in Washington, D.C., and I got into hospitality. I started as a tour guide, then I went to concierging at hotels, and then I evolved into sales management, still within the hotel industry, until I took a cruise as an adult for the very first time. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is it. This is the thing that I dreamed of doing as a child. And now is the time. I was still in my 20s. And so I pursued it. I chased the dream. I caught it. And I went out and lived and worked on a cruise ship for the better part of 8 years. And it was a career change. It was a phenomenal opportunity to come into my own as a public speaker and to be able to marry my background in hospitality, my love of sales and presenting. And I made some great contacts in the industry. And then when it was time to go, I fell into presenting for conventions in the automotive industry, and also directing tours, not exactly cross country, but weekly tours, hosting people from different countries because I do speak languages. I grew up speaking Spanish, I speak French, I speak Italian. And so, yeah, that was phenomenal. And then finally, I came full circle when a former colleague of mine had been recruited by Effy Group. She had worked on ships. When she was new to ships, I actually helped onboard her because at the time I had already been there a few years. And then she had found her way to back to land through Effy, and Effy was growing. And so that's how I came full circle and landed at Effy headquarters, wholesale headquarters in the heart of New York City, where I was born and raised.
Oh, wow. That is a total full circle moment there. I love the cruise ship aspect of finding your space or finding your place there. 8 years in that aspect. It sounds fun. It also sounds like a lot of work as well. I think a lot of times people look at the hospitality industry and think everything is so glitz and glamour. It's so awesome, but it does involve work. And so I love that aspect too. So for individuals that are on our podcast who don't know about the Effy Group, tell us a little bit about the organization and what makes it so special, what makes it so unique.
So the Effy Group was founded as a private label wholesale fine jewelry manufacturer by a man who was named Effy Hamatian. And it was the classic American dream story. He came to the United States in the late 70s, around the time of the revolution in Iran. And having been an electronic engineer, he decided he didn't want to get recertified to do that again, knowing that he would have to go to English school and whatnot. And he decided to pursue his passion, which was self-expression through beautiful jewelry design. And so he started designing jewelry, and he was able to land a partnership as he was, showing up every day, struggling, hustling. He actually, the story goes, he was looking to get out of the rain. He was already designing jewelry in New York City in the Diamond District. And he walked into a Saks Fifth Avenue. And he was looking at the jewelry, staying dry because it was raining outside, when a woman approached him and said, "How can I help you?" And he said, Well, I just happened to design jewelry. Is the jewelry buyer here by chance? And it turned out that she was the jewelry buyer. She just happened to
Oh,
be there. And
wow.
so at that time is when he was able to show her his design, some of his pieces, and he landed his first wholesale partnership. Now, granted, it was private label, but soon after he started selling in partnership with Saks, Macy's followed, and then he had a tremendous success designing and manufacturing fine jewelry under the Macy's fine jewelry label until his two eldest sons finished business school, and they were so proud of his success in the industry as a private label fine jewelry manufacturer. They convinced him to launch his product as a brand in the Caribbean, where they became savvy to a growing industry, which was the cruise line
Yeah.
industry. They realized that the ships were getting bigger, and and that the cruise lines were growing, and so they opened their first Effie shop in Aruba back in the early to mid 2000s. Now, at that time, Edward, I was working on board as what I like to refer to nowadays the original influencer. I was the port and shopping guide. I would get everybody excited about shopping and about what was exciting to find in the different ports of call. And I remember getting the very first script for this new player in the industry named Effie. And I remember talking to the audience and saying, hey, if you've been shopping for fine jewelry by Saks or by Macy's, starting in the mid to late 80s, early 90s, then chances are you're an Effie collector already and you don't even know it. And so that sort of came together in that people were curious. So they would go into the store and they would see beautiful, colorful jewelry. And then they would go back home and they would recognize the matching styles, and they really started to enjoy collecting the jewelry because, again, the founder, having been an engineer, really lent itself to meticulous craftsmanship, wonderful quality, always looking for the very best color gemstones. He's known in the industry, he was known, he's deceased now, as the king of color. We lost him about 3 years ago,
Wow.
but I am so proud to have worked with him because that whole process just kept, it was like a snowball effect. It just kept growing and growing. Before you knew it, the cruise lines themselves were wanting to sell the Effie product on board. And at that time, they were going through a third party. And when the cruise lines, fast forward about 15 years, the cruise lines realized, oh, wow, people love Effie. That's what they're buying. That's what they're taking home to remember their cruise ship
Yeah.
experience, right? They reached out directly to the Effie family, and now Effie runs the entire onboard retail fine jewelry operation on all of the major cruise lines. It's a phenomenal full circle moment for them to have grown so quickly and so phenomenally in the travel space. So not just on the cruise ships, but in the ports of call, even at like the resorts. The sandals, they're there. We're in partnership with Colombian Emeralds International, which is, at the sandals resorts. You go in there, you're going to find an amazing amount of Effie collections. So if anyone's traveled either on a cruise ship or to a resort in the Caribbean, or to any of the islands in Alaska, chances are they've seen the Effie shop and
Definitely.
experienced the fun behind these beautiful ways to express yourself.
No, that's such a phenomenal story. And I know what, when you were telling me that before, I think it was important for our listeners to know that too. And you're right. There's probably a lot of our listeners who have seen it, probably own their own pieces of Effie jewelry as well. And I found it very amazing how the evolution of the brand got them to where they are now. And I think the big thing too is how travel and tourism and hospitality has been the focal point of their success in doing what they're doing. Are there any big things on tap for the organization going into this year or next year?
There are indeed. So, our industry is forever evolving. We have the retail industry right now is in such a volatile state.
Yeah.
And so we're always trying to kind of not follow the trend, but set the trend.
Mhm.
So what's new and exciting for 2026 is an elevated designer event experience. So whether it's at your neighborhood department store or a high-end jewelry store, we're in partnership at every level of the way. And what we have is a small army of, designer event representatives that work directly for the wholesale operation. And they themselves are like traveling shops of Effy because they have a tremendous and unique assortment. Each one of them has a unique assortment. And then they go in and they make an event about visiting the different locations around the country. And what we're doing is we're elevating that assortment. So now you're looking at exotic gemstones. Everybody loves their diamonds and their sapphires, their rubies, their emeralds, even their turquoise, their amethyst, right? All the birthstones. We all love the color that Effy is known for. But we've noticed that what people are loving now is because we've introduced more exotic stones like Paraiba, Alexandrite, star sapphire. So what you're going to be finding is a tremendous amount of newness, not just in the styles, but in the colors and in the rarer gemstones like Alexandrite. Alexandrite is even rarer than a diamond. It's a magical gemstone that changes color depending on the way the light hits it. So, for your listeners that are jewelry lovers, we hear you. We know that you want that something really, really special and rare, and more of it is coming to you set in, all of the meticulous craftsmanship that Effy has become so well known for. So there's that aspect of 2026. We're upping our game in that area. And we opened the first ever Effy shop in the continental North American space outside of Alaska, which is the Effy Hamatian Boutique on Fifth Avenue. So that is probably the biggest news. So to all of you out there listening, when you come to New York City, we are just a stone's throw away from Rockefeller Center, from St. Patrick's Cathedral, from Saks Fifth Avenue, where it all started, but with our own storefront. So we're very, very excited to invite you in. Absolutely.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I love what you're doing, what you have been doing, and where you're going with the brand as well. And that's why I wanted our readers and our listeners to know about that. Let's shift a little bit as we're getting close on time here from the professional side. I always love to ask my guests that a couple of personal questions on travel, since we are a travel show. What are some of your favorite travel destinations you've been to? And then do you have any bucket list spots on your list?
Of course. So it's funny. I always struggle with that question because people know that I've been traveling for most of my professional life, either on cruise ships or on behalf of Effy or in the tourism industry. And what I've done is I've kind of categorized my favorites. So now I'm going to reference my list here because again, it was hard to narrow this down. But as far as cultural, my favorite is probably Japan. So different, right? Than everything that we know. Having grown up here, I really, really appreciated how clean and how picturesque and how hospitable the whole Japanese experience was. And it had a little bit of adventure, and wildlife and the onsens, the spas, which I'm all about the wellness when I travel. But definitely culturally, I enjoyed all of the temples, the respect for wildlife. I mean, I don't know if you've been, but I visited a small town called Nara where the deer roam wild. And
I just saw about that.
Yeah, you get to be up close and personal with them. So Japan is definitely number one when it comes to cultural. When it comes to tropical, seeing as I did work on cruise ships and everybody associates the cruise line industry with the Caribbean, my all-time favorite, well, I have a top three in that category. So I love St. John, U.S. Virgin Island, for the pristine beaches. I love Bermuda also for the beaches and the culture. But I guess the most memorable experience I had as far as a tropical one had to have been in Virgin Gorda in Tortola. So the ship would dock in Tortola, and from Tortola, you get on the ferry boat to take you to Virgin Gorda. Visiting the baths there is an experience like no other. And the boulders and the experience of, it's like you're going cave exploring, but yet you've got the ocean. You're at the ocean's level, and the water comes in and creates these beautiful baths in a cathedral-like space within these massive boulders. So that's my favorite tropical destination. And then I have the adventure category. And for that, I would probably have to say Turkey. That's my favorite there. The hot air balloons, the Blue Voyage, the Blue Voyage are these like little gulets is what they call them. And they're these like 3-day cruises up and down the Kekova coast, the Kekova Islands of Turkey. And the spear fishing that then turns into what's for dinner. I mean, it's just so much fun to go snorkeling and swimming and hot air ballooning and in an area called I'm going blank on the name. There's Pamukkale, and then I'm going blank right now, but there's an area with beautiful caves that are above ground. You feel like you've landed on the moon, and people actually dwell in these caves.
Oh, wow.
So that's wild. So I'd say those are my top favorite destinations. I know that was a long answer to a short question.
No, that's okay. Do you have a bucket list spot or two that you want to end with?
Yes, indeed. I would say number one on that bucket list is the Azores as part of Portugal in the Atlantic. Yep. Mm-hmm. And then following that, I have the Palawan Islands in the Philippines, because I think being able to scuba dive among jellyfish without fear of being bit, that's a thing there. That actually happens.
Yeah, I've been stung by so many jellyfish as a kid here in South Texas going to the beach. But yeah, that definitely does sound like something that is unique to the area. But as we're wrapping up here, what's the best way for people to find out about the Effy Group and connect?
Well, we have our website, effyjewelry.com. We're also on QVC. We're obviously on all the major cruise lines. So always pop in and say hello to the teams. And if I could leave everybody with a little bit of an insider secret of sorts,
we'll take it.
That's that Effy Hamatian, when he passed away, this was about 3 years ago, we were in the process of moving to a larger facility just a few blocks away from our original facility in the Diamond District. And I was tasked with helping to pack up everything that was left in his workspace that he shared with a team of designers. And we found archives of decades worth of designs and sketches that had yet to be released.
Wow.
So like most rock stars, they become even more famous post-mortem. So I invite everyone not only to come say hello when you're on the cruise ship, come visit us on Fifth Avenue, but know that the sketches that you're seeing and will continue to see for decades to come were actually inspired and sketched by the founder himself, Effy Hamatian.
Wow, that's awesome. That's a great way to end this podcast for sure. Such great insight that you're bringing, Tatiana. And I just want to thank you for being on the show today.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thank you, Edward. Thanks for having me.
Oh, perfect. Hey, to all of our listeners and readers out there, you know the drill. Follow us at thehotelguide.com. Like, subscribe, share. We'll have in the show notes Effy's website and how to contact them and get in connection with them. But as we always like to say, travel and make memories. And until next time, everybody take care, and we'll talk soon.